What is the faith that the Jewish people should have? Do they have it? What am I talking about it for? Did God put it in my mouth to talk about it? Well, let me ask you. The Jewish people, when they were right with God, exercised faith. And he provided all their needs. He gave them food. He gave them wealth. Didn't he heal them? He even stopped their enemies. Well, let me ask you a question then. As Jewish people, do you put your hands in the hands of Allstate Insurance? Or do you put your hands and put yourself in the hands of the God of Israel? Whoa, did I strike a nerve? I mean, really now, you can pray for finances. God's blessed many Jews with business, academics, being able to do music well, figure out mathematical problems. God's blessed these people. But let me ask you, do you have faith? Do you believe in faith God will protect you from your enemies? Provide you with food to eat? Wait a minute. He provided the children of Israel with food to eat. How about you? Oh, now I'm going to really strike a nerve. What about healing and physical well-being? When you look at just the Old Testament and you start asking questions, you might regret it. Who is it that heals the children of Israel? The God of Israel. I am the Lord that healeth thee. Okay, you know where it's at. So you put your faith in him, he will heal your body. Isn't that something? He will give you health. What did he say? If you don't do the things the Egyptians do, I won't put none of their diseases on you. Okay? So there is consequences for not having faith. Because of unbelief, some never entered in. Now, you know, I've heard someone else say it concerning the churches. They have enough unbelief to sink a battleship. I've heard that statement. So, but I'm asking to the Jewish people, do you have faith? I know in the New Testament there's overcomers, the manifested sons of God, and they walk by faith, they stand by faith, they're healed by the prayer of faith. You know, it even says in the New Testament they have been given exceedingly precious promises whereby they can be partakers of divine nature. Well, let's put that back in the Old Testament. You don't celebrate pagan holidays, do you? Well, you shouldn't, and that's good. Why would you want to celebrate the sun god? Or maybe some feminine god of sexuality with eggs and bunnies, or Christmas trees, or Halloween, and all this stuff that's Catholic. God gave you so much knowledge that you know that there's only one God. You're not going to worship three little gods that are all in cooperation with each other. You're smarter than that. But do you really believe God heals you? It says in the Bible that he's your healer. It doesn't tell you, as Jewish people, to run to the medical deities, does it? Well, how do you say the word Asclepios, pharmaceuticus, or something like that? That means drugs. Help me. But they are pagan gods. Isn't that something? What was the name of that king in the Old Testament? Instead of going to God, he had, what do you have, gout? You tell me the story. Instead of going to God to be healed, he sought after the physicians. Well, in the New Testament, the Christians think the Antichrist will come, and if they don't take the mark of the beast, they can't buy or sell. If they can't buy and sell, they can't buy drugs, and they can't buy doctors. Wait a minute. What about doctors? I read that, hang on now, I read that Planned Parenthood, somebody it was, put the data together that there approximately, I've heard different numbers, 100 million babies aborted since Roe versus Wade in 1973. 100 million babies murdered. The day before Roe versus Wade, it was murder to abort a child. The day after, it was an accepted medical procedure performed by the American Medical Association's endorsed license, where they swear an oath. Well, they don't do it no more, most places. But boy, they sure did for a long time. And if you read the papers in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, they venerate. And it's like a long-standing tradition, the oath. to serve the goddesses. I'm going to say some names that ain't coming out right. They will serve the god Asclepius, Hygiena, Panacea, and all the other Greek gods and goddesses. They will promise to serve them before they will heal mankind. And you as a Jew are going to go to those doctors? Oh, wait a minute. We've got the good ones. Really? Show me that in the Old Testament. Well, you might find one verse out of about 50,000 that talks about a doctor or something that you can kind of like shoehorn it in there. Yeah, but wait a minute. What about faith in the God of Israel, who said, I'm the Lord that healeth thee? Oh, you don't believe in him, do you? Isn't that something? What would you do if you didn't have insurance? Well, you surely couldn't get a loan and be in debt. What are you in debt for? The God of Israel has all the kingdoms on earth that he can take money from if he wants. I'm not talking about the enemy in the Christian Bible that took Jesus and said, bow down and worship me, and I will give you all the kingdoms and all the riches therein. And that's the one, that's the God that, or the devil or Satan, that's the one that, what is it, Rabbi Singer says he thanks God every day for? What? Are you nuts? They sacrificed their children to devils. Well, wait a minute. You don't think the devils weren't involved in it when they were sacrificing their children to devils? And you think, oh, I believe it. I support Israel. I love the Jews. I want to help them. I want to serve the God of Israel. But I'm a troublemaker. Come on. They sacrificed their children to devils. When did that happen? How many of the children of Israel entered into the promised land? I know the Jews, you've got a covenant, you have a promise of being restored, the restoration of the Jews. I believe in it. But how many didn't make it into the promised land? Isn't that interesting? And what kind of gods were they involved with then? Do you have faith enough to confess that the God of Israel is your healer? He created everything. Couldn't he heal you? Yes, he could. Maybe he won't if you don't want him to. Well, why wouldn't you? You don't have enough faith? Is that it? And you got the Christians that run to these faith healers, and then they run to Oral Roberts, who created a medical university to train doctors. When James said the prayer of faith will heal the sick. Well, wait a minute. That's for the other guy, ain't it? Well, the other guy's not there. Do you really have faith? Why would anybody bless Satan or say, thank God for Satan? That's what this rabbi said. I made the video rebuking him. Why wouldn't you say something like this? Bless the God of Israel that heals my body and feeds me and clothes me and gives me money. I don't need insurance. I've got assurance. This is the God that protects me from my enemies. This is the God that will help me be holy, because it says, where? Without holiness, no man will see God. So are you holy? Or do you put your faith in the world and all of their pagan gods? I'm talking to the Jewish people. I'm not talking about the Catholics praying to Mary, or the Orthodox and all their dead men's bones they're kissing, and all of the saints they pray to, all of that occult pagan idolatry. And the Protestants, the poor Anabaptists said, oh no, we're going to believe like the Jews, the babies are born innocent. Luther and his edicts were having their pastors burn at the stake, and there's even in history writings of them being roped together, the whole family drug in the river and publicly drowned. And people were beat up. It almost sounded like they were being tormented like the poor Jews running from all their enemies. You know what you need to do? It says you're supposed to go back to Israel. Okay, I would do that. But you know what you ought to do? I'm telling the Jews. You ought to start speaking words of faith like the world has never heard. Say, oh, my God. Okay? You ought to start talking faith. Maybe then God would show you some things that are maybe deeper spiritual. Not just natural law, not just legal things and logical things, maybe things that are spiritual. Let me give you a little spiritual hint. Do you know it says that his name is above all names. Who's that? Whose name is the name that is the most written, printed name in the history of the world? One name that's way ahead of all other names. Who is that? Name above all names. That's the name of God. Because there's only one name that can be above all the names. There's only one God. And that God manifested in a donkey and in a bush. Who's going to tell me that God can't manifest in a man in any degree that he wants to? Well, what about Moses? He spoke the words and the sea parted. Oh, Moses had a lot of power, didn't he? Maybe it was the God of Israel's power manifesting in Moses. Who was it that wrung the lion's neck? I liked that story when I was young. Or little David, with the big, giant evil. I wonder, as much as I admire some of these rabbis that have been speaking with me, I admire you. Do you really believe in the spiritual realm? Do you really believe they sacrificed babies to devils? In the Old Testament, it talks about it. Do you really believe that maybe, besides the physical laws of medicine and everything that talk about the abnormality called giantism, that there was a giant that had that, and maybe them same devils that they were sacrificing children to were inside that giant? And it took a little boy named David, to have enough faith to kill that giant, and he ended up being the king of Israel. The king. And you can't even have faith enough to say, I don't need insurance. I'm in God's hands. Not Allstate. I don't need that little guy called Lizard. Get him out of here. I've got the God of Israel. Isn't that something? I don't need the American Medical Association. I don't need those doctors that perform abortions. And who was it? Planned Parenthood. And there was a Baptist. Focus on the Family. They did data on women having abortions. They all fill out all of those papers. 70% of all of those abortions, they claim, were performed by women that were professing Christians. Lots of them have replacement theology. They're wrapped up in dualism. They believe that they remain sinful. They're born that way. They will always be that way. And they're just in a state of forgiven. So they're forgiven even if they abort their child. They make, it's like Paul said, whether you like him or not, he said, since grace abounds, sin abounds. God forbid. So, shouldn't the Jewish people be like that little boy named David? I'll guarantee you, if David was here, he wouldn't be thanking God for Satan. He wouldn't be saying, oh, God bless Satan. He'd say, now bring me the next one. I've got another rock. He'd kill him graveyard dead. That's faith. So bless the name of Israel. Bless the God of Israel. He has all power in heaven and on earth. Okay? Thank you.